Richard de Haast, Scalabrini Community CEO of Scalabrini. Thank you, Richard, for joining us on Radio Italia Uno Adelaide.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, I gather, I gather you've just come back from a big trip, a big meeting in the Philippines with the Scalabrini brothers. So maybe you can bring that as a context, because I wanted to understand. I associate Scalabrini with the brothers and the saint. Do we have a faith-based approach here to the organisation?
We absolutely do. It is central to who we are. As some of your listeners will know, the origin story of the congregation was with Bishop Scalabrini in the north of Italy, who approached the Pope at the time, in his period when there was a lot of turmoil in Italy and a lot of migration out of the country. In fact, over a decade around that time, 12 million Italians left that country to go to South America, North America, and into Europe. And so he approached the Pope and asked to set up a congregation specifically to look after migrants in those countries that they'd moved to. And so that is very clear and dear to who we are and our ethos. In fact, we don't have a strategic plan, Antonio. We have a mission plan. And that mission is to serve migrants in the settings and contexts that they live in, and walking that journey with them. And those could very well be migrants who are our customers, but also 84% of our staff are born outside of Australia. So they themselves are migrants. And so it's a wonderful, me as the chief executive of the organization, it's a wonderful origin story, and for us to be grounded in that, to use that mission plan as our North Star about making decisions about what we do.
Well, 80% or over 80% of your staff being migrants, that's well above the average for Australia. It fits in with the conversation we had earlier about the census that's coming up very soon. And yes, we'll come back to that, I think, later on, because there's some interesting points to be said. So you recently acquired the activities of the aged care activities of St Hilarion here in Adelaide. Is that your first expansion out of Melbourne? Why
That's our first expansion out of New South Wales.
Out of New South Wales.
Prior to us signing the agreement in December and then it going live at the end of February, we had only operated within New South Wales. 5 residential aged care facilities in Sydney itself, with a development site as well in that mix, and then a location in Griffith. So yes, this is our first expansion out of that particular state.
Interesting. I just was associating Scalabrini with Melbourne. Maybe there's another association. So why did you think it was a good idea to come to Adelaide?
Why did we think it was a good idea to come to Adelaide? Well, lots of migrants in Adelaide is really the honest answer to that. So we were approached by the society and asked to be one of the parties involved in a process around them moving out of the aged care operations, both the residential aged care services as well as the supported home, the home care operations as well. So we are very grateful for the opportunity. There is a lot of history between the society and the Scalabrinians. I mean, not only are the operations in Adelaide located within the Seaton Catholic Parish, which has been operated for many, many decades by the Scalabrini congregation, but also, the chapel at the House of St Hilarion is called the Scalabrini Chapel. So there is a lot of connection over the years between the society and the Scalabrinians. And so for us, it felt right as our first move outside of New South Wales. But more importantly, the heart of the St Hilarion aged care business was migrants. And so for us, it was an opportunity to continue our service to migrant groups across Australia by putting our hat in the ring and seeing if we were successful, which indeed we were, and we're very pleased with that.
Now, you've mentioned both the residential and community care activities. You intend to continue those? What strategy are you bringing to the Adelaide operations?
Well, I think we've got in New South Wales, we've got established service lines. We call them service lines: residential aged care and supported home care. We also have a service line called Live Easy Social, which is about providing social activities, excursions, social hubs for customers who are living at home but are seeking to be less socially isolated and look for companionship and friendship. Very similar to the Society's Tempo Mio program. And so, we're bringing that particular brand and that ethos and that focus into the Adelaide market. And of course, I think for the teams here in Adelaide, we've got an opportunity to provide, I guess, some bench strength that a larger organization is able to provide. Aged care is a challenging place to operate a business in. And, our size and the skills and experience that we have was certainly, and we've seen that in the last 4 or 5 months, added a lot into the operations down in Adelaide.
Yes, with a lot of bureaucracy, regulations, and the cost that imposes. I think there's a premium for scale and scaling up, and bringing that approach from interstate could be interesting. So then you've already started to talk about it. What is the general approach? I won't use the word strategy for Scalabrini. What is the general approach you bring to the aged care area? Because I'm gathering you're not a priest yourself.
So, no, I'm not. No. But they call me father when I come to the gathering. So and that's why I look a bit rough and rugged, because I climbed off a plane at 6:45 this morning and have been at work all day. So I look a bit unshaven and disheveled. But we're very close with the congregation. Out of our 8 board members, we have 2 Scalabrini priests as part of those 8. And they also sit on the mission committee, so that we're absolutely aligned with the ethos of the Scalabrinians. And in fact, as Saint John Baptist said, go where the migrants are and serve them. And that's really what we do. That is the reason we get up in the morning, is to be of service to people. And in our particular context, we are talking about supporting people at a time and stage of their life journey where sometimes they can be very vulnerable and they need that support and care. And so for us, it's a great reason to get up in the morning, is to make a difference and a positive impact in people's lives in that stage.
Given the origins that you just told us about, following the Italian migrants, you mentioned Griffith. So would your locations in New South Wales be mostly where there's a strong presence of Italianness?
Our origin site is out in a suburb called Austral, which is in kind of Western Sydney, which was at the time in the 1970s a place of great market gardens, with a huge concentration of Italians. So it seemed a natural place to start. Griffith was our second site, naturally, again, because of the concentration of Italians. And then the methodology at the time was local committees were set up of the great and good of the community, we had a very strong, charismatic Catholic Scalabrinian priest called Father Nevio, who was in those committees as well. And they would fundraise locally, they would find the site and then build and then operate it themselves. As aged care became more complex, they decided to roll all of those local committees into a single organization and company, which is where Scalabrini Village started. Almost 2 years ago, we changed the constitution to call ourselves Scalabrini communities,
Yes.
because we felt that that better reflected what we stand for, but also the fact that a village implies bricks and mortar. And we were, of course, doing many, many more things, not limited to that. So, yeah, so the Scalabrinians themselves came to Australia in 1952 and went into Wollongong as the first parish that they had,
Yes.
just south of Sydney. Lots of Italians at the port and the steelworks there. And so that's where they landed, and that's where it grew from.
Okay.
And so now
yes.
The Scalabrinians have used their presence in Australia to springboard into a number of other countries. So we are part of a province that includes the Philippines, Taiwan, Japan, Indonesia, Vietnam, India, Timor-Leste. So we're part of that group. So when there is these assemblies that I was at this week, we have priests from all of those countries come together and engage with each other and go through formation, but also updates about the missions that are happening in those countries. And in fact, for the Scalabrinians, the General Superior of the congregation met with us last year and very clearly said that him and his council view the provision of aged care services to migrants as part of the Scalabrini mission, which was wonderful to hear.
Okay, there's an interesting collection of Asian countries to visit. But now, if you're following Italian migrant communities, I guess I should observe an Italian feel to your activities. How would I observe that if I was walking around or participating in what Scalabrini communities does?
Well, it's interesting because when I joined 4.5 years ago up in New South Wales, 69% of our residents in our residential care facilities were born in Italy. So that was 69%. As of today, what do you think that percentage is, Antonio?
Actually, might even be higher. I don't know. It's an interesting one because if you started only a few years ago, there might be more older Italians around.
So in 4 years, it is now 38%.
38, okay.
So what people find in the industry is that first-generation migrants and their children, but more specifically the first-generation migrants, probably weren't fully assimilated into the country. So they tended to live in the same areas, interact with each other, set up societies and social groups, but effectively the need to, I guess, be fluent in English and things like that wasn't a big driver as they found their feet in the new country. And so first-generation migrants really love residential aged care facilities that are ethno-specific. The second, third generations, the decision is how close am I to my children or my grandchildren?
Yes.
So the need for some of those things, and that's our own experience, is that not by design, just by making sure that people knew that we weren't the Italian place, because when I first arrived, people weren't inquiring because they thought you had to be Italian to be admitted into the nursing homes. And so we've managed that transition. So what does it look and feel like? Well, the menu still reflects the fact that 40%, 37% of our residents are Italian. So you see that. The naming convention, what we name our casas, we call them casas, have Italian. The iconography, the pictures up on the wall reflect Italy. And so you've still got that strong sense of it. And we retain that real sense of history and appreciation for the people that literally laid the foundations in the first couple of sites. They would be weekend working bees to lay concrete and pipe work and do the electrics and things. So, we certainly have that as a very respectful core of part of our history.
Yes. Important. So now clearly you're open to anybody. Anybody can come and participate or join the aged care residential facilities. Now, the name De Haast doesn't sound very Italian. I'm hearing an accent which I recognise from some friends, and I've had a look at your. Actually, let's take a step back. I see you have a very long career in an established career in the non-for-profit and social sector, not only in Australia. How did you decide, or why did that happen?
Why did that happen? Well, my parents were very strong social justice champions. In fact, my father was a general manager of a hotel in a country that no longer exists. It was Rhodesia at the time, is now Zimbabwe. And in the middle of a war about race and independence, he convinced the owner of the hotel to have a multicultural or multiracial hotel because he felt strongly that everybody was equal, is equal, and should have access to it. It was the only hotel in the country that was, in fact, multiracial. So I guess that the roots and origins are there. I studied to be a priest for just under 2 years, and then I went off and studied to be a human rights lawyer because I wanted to change the apartheid regime in South Africa. So that strong sense of kind of social justice and making a difference in people's lives is there. I worked in hotels. In fact, I am the quintessential when the Scalabrini fathers talk about me, they go, you are the best example of a migrant because Australia is the 5th country I've lived in. And so I understand certainly, and you referenced it earlier, and I made comment that 84% of our staff were born outside Australia. And so I've walked their journey, albeit in a somewhat more privileged position than some of our workers coming into the country. But I understand the path of a migrant. So when I came into Australia, and it's probably about 8 years ago, I was offered the role in Salvation Army as their aged care director for their national business. It felt good to be back in a not-for-profit. At one point in my career, I was the chief executive of a stock exchange listed company. And so, it was quite a contrast, but it felt like, it was good to be in that sort of place. And since that time, I've carried on in the not-for-profit space. And it's a beautiful, as I say, just the industry is a wonderful place to be in terms of our customers and how we support them. But I think with the lens of faith, there are faith providers in this country and other countries I've worked in who they just have the cross on the outside of the building, if I can describe it as that, but the faith doesn't kind of percolate and permeate through things. I think the key difference for us is it is front and center. We are unashamedly faith-based. We're unashamedly Catholic. Every single one of our residential aged care facility sites has a community of nuns who actually live on site. So slightly different in Adelaide, where the sisters who look after and provide pastoral care don't live on site, but in New South Wales, in all of our 6 locations, we've got communities of nuns who live on site, who all of them across both Adelaide and New South Wales wear the traditional habits, so they're very clearly nuns. We don't shy away from that, and that I think, as a Catholic myself, is a wonderful place to be, where we're not ashamed. It's not something we hide. It's something we celebrate. By the same token, each November we have a church service, a mass for the residents, to remember the residents who had passed away in the last 12 months. Now, when I joined, that was something that was happening sporadically. It now became a thing that we did every year around All Saints and All Souls Days. But I then said, why don't we do that for our staff? Because, of course, as you'd appreciate, with migrants, often you have family around the world. And if they pass away, you're sometimes not possible to go and be with them, to grieve and to have that closure. So I designed a multi-faith service to celebrate. So that is now part of our calendar as well, where we invite the staff to remember their loved ones who've passed away in Australia, but also overseas. And, it was a delight to put that together, drawing on the Jewish tradition, the Hindu tradition, the Muslim tradition, and the Christian tradition, to put that together. So yes, each one of our sites has a chapel. And so, it is very, very clear what we stand for.
Yes, you mentioned 5 countries. Having looked at your profile, I could see New Zealand, South Africa, maybe United States. Well, you mentioned Zimbabwe, Rhodesia, and so where else have you?
The UK.
The UK. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I studied a master's degree over there.
Lovely. Impressive to hear you still have communities of nuns. I didn't know they existed anymore in Australia, but
they do.
Yes.
So one of my delights is that I have 4 different religious nun congregations. 5 now, that I need to engage with and bring along. In fact, on my executive team, I have Sister Maria Elena, who is our pastoral care coordinator. So she sits on the executive team. That was one of the first decisions I made when I joined, was to bring her into the executive team so that she has a voice around the table.
Now, you've already partly answered this, but you said there's a high proportion of migrants, or over 80% amongst the staff. I'm presuming there are not so many recent Italian migrants in that area.
They're mixed, actually. It's interesting. Yes. We've got Italians who have incredibly long service with us, 30, 35, 40 years. And then we've seen an interesting shift in the last couple of years of younger Italians. So Italians in their 30s who don't see for themselves a hugely positive future or opportunity in Italy, who are coming through. So it's interesting. We've kind of got a bookmark a little bit about the people in their 50s and early 60s, and this cohort of people in their 30s who've come across, and they add enormous value, and certainly in Adelaide, the proportion of Italian-speaking staff that we have is very, very high.
Yes. Okay, well, I'll say thank you again to Rich for having joined us, and thank you for doing this after such a long day and some maybe not so much jet lag, but tiredness after an overnight flight, which is certainly puts pressure on the body and the mind at times. Well, we hope to have some conversations from time to time.
I look forward to it any time.
Yes, fine. Thank you. Have a good weekend and a good rest tonight.
Thank you very much.